You are not tired. You are emptied. And there is a difference that changes everything about what you actually need right now. Tired is what happens after a hard week. Tired responds to rest, to sleep, to a quiet weekend. Tired is the ordinary depletion of a system that has worked hard and needs recovery. What you are carrying is not that. What you are carrying is the specific soul-level exhaustion of someone who has been absorbing the emotional weight of the world around them, consistently, generously, without adequate protection and without adequate replenishment, for longer than any system was designed to sustain. And no amount of sleep is fixing it, because sleep addresses the body. What is exhausted in you is not primarily the body. You are an empath. You feel what other people feel, not as a metaphor, not as a social skill, but as a genuine, involuntary, physiologically real absorption of emotional information from every person and every environment you encounter. You walk into a room, and the emotional reality of everyone in it becomes available to you whether you want it to or not. You listen to someone and feel not just what they are saying, but what they are not saying. You absorb pain, anxiety, grief, and confusion from the people around you with the specific, relentless consistency of someone for whom emotional permeability is not a choice, but a fundamental feature of how their consciousness operates. That gift is real. It is extraordinary. And it has been consuming you from the inside out because the giving has far exceeded the receiving. The absorbing has far exceeded the releasing. And the caring for everyone else has happened at the systematic expense of the most important thing your gift requires to remain functional: your own interior. 7 signs mark the point at which the exhaustion has moved from manageable to urgent. 7 specific, honest, unmistakable signals that your soul is not simply tired. It is telling you, with increasing desperation, that what you have been doing to yourself cannot continue. These are those signals. And if more than 3 of them describe you right now, this is not a message you can afford to postpone. The first sign your empath soul is exhausted is that sleep has stopped restoring you, and the mornings feel heavier than the nights. You wake up tired, not the ordinary tiredness of someone who stayed up too late or had a difficult night. The specific, settled, this is not going away tiredness of someone whose system has been working all night, processing what the day deposited, the grief that was not yours but settled in your body anyway, the anxiety that arrived from someone else's presence and never fully left, the emotional content of 100 small absorptions, each individually manageable, cumulatively enormous, that the sleeping hours were supposed to release but could not. Your sleep is disrupted by this, by the mind that cannot quieten because it is still processing, by the replaying of not just your own experiences, but other people's, by the specific, unresolvable quality of carrying emotional material that was never yours to carry long term, and that your system does not know how to release because it was never taught that releasing was permitted. You wake up exhausted, and the day that follows requires you to begin absorbing again before the previous day's load has been cleared. That cycle, accumulate, fail to release, accumulate more, is the mechanism of soul exhaustion, and the only genuine response to it is not more sleep. It is learning to release, developing the specific, practiced, non-negotiable capacity to feel what arrives without retaining what was never yours to keep. Here is the first brutal truth: the exhaustion you feel every morning is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence of a system that was never taught how to protect itself. The problem is not your sensitivity. The sensitivity is the gift. The problem is the absence of the boundaries that would allow the gift to operate without consuming the person who carries it. The second sign is that something feels profoundly wrong, and you cannot name it, explain it, or make it stop. This is one of the most disorienting experiences available to the empath, because empaths are extraordinarily skilled at identifying and articulating emotional realities in other people, in rooms, and the invisible dynamics that most people move through without noticing. And yet, when the soul itself is the thing that is suffering, the precision turns inward and finds that the suffering is too deep, too layered, too much a part of the fundamental interior landscape to be clearly distinguished, unnamed. You feel it constantly, not as a specific emotion with a specific cause, as an undifferentiated heaviness, a flatness, where there used to be engagement, a loss of the joy that once came naturally from giving, from helping, from being the person whose presence produced genuine uplift in the people around them. But giving continues. It almost always continues, because the empath's identity is organized around it. But the return it used to produce has gone quiet. You cannot tell people what is wrong because you genuinely do not know how to locate it with enough precision to describe it, and that inability to name it means it goes unaddressed, because neither you nor the people around you know what to address. It remains the formless, persistent, exhausting background of your daily existence. The third sign is that you space out constantly, and the spacing out is not distraction, it is system overload. The empath's mind at maximum capacity does what any overloaded system does. It divides. It splits its attention between the present moment, the conversation, the task, the interaction currently requiring presence, and the accumulated backlog of unprocessed emotional material that is continuously demanding processing from the background. You are in the middle of work and somewhere else, in the middle of conversation and gone, present in body and absent in the way that matters. Not because you choose inattention, because the system does not have the available bandwidth for full presence when the background demand is this heavy. This affects your performance, your relationships, the quality of your engagement with everything that deserves your actual attention, and the response most people offer. Try harder to focus. Be more disciplined about presence. Misidentifies the problem entirely. The problem is not attention management. The problem is overload. And overload requires reduction of the load, not increased effort to manage what is not manageable at its current level. You are not failing at focus. You are succeeding at absorbing far more than any system was designed to hold. And something has to give. The fourth sign is that other people, including people you genuinely love, have become draining in a way that frightens you. This is the sign that produces the most guilt, because the empath's entire identity is organized around their capacity for genuine caring, around being the one who can hold space, who remains present with difficulty, who absorbs what others need to release without being diminished by the absorbing. And when the reservoir reaches empty and the people around you begin to feel like a weight, like yet another demand on a resource that is already completely gone, the empath's first response is not to recognize the depletion. It is to conclude that they have become a bad person. They have not. The ear capacity has reached its limit. And this distinction between a character failure and a resource limit is the one that the exhausted empath most urgently needs to hear and most consistently fails to believe. You are not less caring. You are empty. And the difference between those two things determines everything about the appropriate response. You do not need to examine your character. You need to replenish the resource, and you cannot replenish it while continuing to pour from it at the same rate that produced the depletion. Here is the second brutal truth. Every person who currently feels draining to you is feeling draining because you are trying to give what you no longer have. The exhaustion of the interaction is not about them. It is about the state of your reservoir. Fill the reservoir and the same people will feel different, but you cannot fill it by continuing to empty it. The fifth sign is that your emotions have become so amplified that small things produce responses that surprise even you. The empath, always feels more intensely than most people. That is the nature of the gift. But when the soul is exhausted, the normal depth of feeling multiplies. The emotional buffer that usually exists between experience and response has worn through. The composure that mediates between what you feel and what you express has become insufficient to its task. Small things produce tears you did not expect. Minor frustrations produce responses that seem disproportionate even to you. The specific gentleness of an ordinary kindness produces an emotional response whose size reveals how starved you have been for it. Everything is too much. Every stimulus hits harder than it should. Every demand feels enormous even when it is ordinary. This is not emotional instability. It is the inevitable consequence of a container that has been full for too long. When there is no room for what arrives overflows. And the overflow does not discriminate. It occurs in response to whatever is present in the moment the threshold is crossed. The healing this requires is not emotional regulation practice. It is the genuine reduction of the load, the removal of what is filling the container past its capacity, the restoration of the interior space that allows new experience to arrive without immediately overflowing. The sixth sign is a loneliness so profound that it persists regardless of how many people surround you. This is the loneliness of being genuinely unseen, of being in a room full of people who care about you, who would help if they knew how, who ask how you are and receive the performance of fine because the performance is so practiced it has become automatic, and being entirely alone with the full weight of what is actually happening. The empath's extraordinary capacity to see and feel other people's genuine experience is not being extended toward them. The specific quality of being truly witnessed, which the empath provides so consistently to everyone around them, is not arriving in return. And the empath, whose entire orientation has been outward for so long, often does not know how to ask for what would change this, does not know how to be the one who needs, does not know how to receive the care that they give so effortlessly, because the receiving is not something they have practiced the way the giving is. You are not truly alone. You are genuinely unseen. And the path out of that loneliness begins not with finding better people. It begins with learning how to show someone, one person, anyone, what is actually happening inside you. The seventh sign, the one that marks the most urgent level of soul exhaustion and that cannot be ignored without significant cost, is that your mind has filled with negativity that is genuinely to who you are, the bitterness, the jealousy toward people whose lives appear to carry less weight than yours, the resentment that has begun building toward people you love, the specific, frightening experience of looking at the person who needs you most and feeling nothing where the caring should be, the cynicism, the loss of the warm, genuine, caring orientation toward other people that has always been the most fundamental feature of your identity. If you are experiencing this, if the part of you that is supposed to care has gone quiet and been replaced by something harder, something that is not at all recognizable as yours, this is the most important signal on this entire list. Not because you have become a bad person, but because the soul exhaustion has reached the level at which the gift itself is being compromised. The very capacity for genuine caring that defines what it means to be an empath is being consumed by the depletion of the resource it runs on. This is the point that requires immediate, non-negotiable honesty. With yourself first, then with someone who can receive that honesty and respond to it with something real. The negativity is not you. It is the experience of someone who has been running on empty for so long that the system has had to shut down non-essential functions to preserve basic operation. And the first non-essential function to be shut down, when the empath's soul reaches critical depletion, is the extraordinary emotional generosity that distinguishes them from everyone around them. It is a warning, the most urgent one available, and it is asking, demanding, that you stop, that the pattern which produced this level of depletion be interrupted, that the giving, for once, pause long enough for genuine restoration to occur. Here's the third brutal truth, the one that this entire script has been building toward. The empath who continues to give from a depleted soul is not being noble. They are not being loving. They are destroying the very resource that makes their extraordinary capacity for caring possible. And the destruction is accelerating. With every day, that genuine restoration is postponed. You are not here to be consumed by other people's needs. You are here to contribute your extraordinary gift to a world that genuinely needs it. But the gift requires a whole person to carry it. And you are becoming less whole every day, that the depletion continues without being honestly addressed. The negativity is the alarm. The alarm has been going off for longer than you have been willing to acknowledge, and the only appropriate response to an alarm is to stop what is causing it. So, here is what this moment demands of you. Not the comfortable acknowledgement of 7 signs that describe your current state, followed by the return to the same patterns of overextension and self-neglect. Not the performance of self-care that looks like restoration without actually producing it. Something more specific, more honest, more immediately required. The decision to make your restoration non-negotiable. Starting today. Not eventually. Not after the current demands have eased, because the demands will not ease on their own. Because there will always be another person who needs what you offer. Because the empath who waits for a convenient time to begin restoring themselves waits indefinitely. Today, here is what that looks like specifically. You identify the single largest drain on your emotional and energetic resources right now. Not in the abstract, the specific person, the specific commitment, the specific daily pattern that is currently asking more than your depleted system can provide, without cost. And you make one genuine, concrete decision to reduce your exposure to it. One step, not the entire restriction, ring of your life. One honest movement toward protection of the resource that everything else depends on. Then you identify the single most genuinely restorative thing available to you. Not the thing that looks like rest, not the thing that provides distraction, but the thing that has historically produced actual interior restoration for you specifically. And you commit to it with the same non-negotiable quality that you bring to your commitments to other people. Because here is the mindset shift that changes everything. Your restoration is not a luxury you earn by first meeting everyone else's needs. It is the prerequisite for meeting anyone's needs genuinely. The most loving thing you can do for the people who depend on your extraordinary capacity for care is to restore that capacity. The most responsible thing you can do with the gift you carry is to maintain the interior conditions that allow it to function at its actual level. You have been treating yourself as optional in your own life, as the person who gets what is left after everyone else has received what they need, as the resource that is expected to replenish itself automatically without dedicated attention or deliberate care, simply because the demand for it continues regardless of whether the replenishment has occurred. That treatment ends today, not with grand declaration, with a specific, immediate, quietly revolutionary decision to direct toward yourself, just once, today, with full commitment, the quality of genuine attentiveness and genuine care that you have been extending to everyone around you, without measure or limit. You deserve the care you give so freely, not as a reward for sufficient giving, as the basic, non-negotiable right of a human being whose extraordinary gift requires a whole person to carry it. 7 signs, all of them pointing at the same thing. You have been emptying without, refilling, giving without receiving, caring for everyone without caring for the one person whose wholeness makes all the caring possible. Stop, receive, restore. The world does not need your depletion. It needs your wholeness. And wholeness begins the moment you finally decide it is not optional. Decide that now.